Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 711. One Sword Crushing Heart. These two were going to fight sooner or later. If they did not fight today, they would do so tomorrow. But if he could settle the issue right now, wouldn't that be even better? He could even avoid unnecessary losses. After his breakthrough, Jun Moxie had not had a proper fight yet. If he could use the blood of a 4th-level venerable to wash his blade, that wouldn't be bad either. Just thinking of it gave him an excited rush. The evil monarch's heart was furthermore already unbearably itchy from not having assassinated anyone for such a long time. With an opponent like that, with such a despicable assassination target in front of him, it would be going against the laws of heaven if he did not strike out with his sword. He would be letting down the people and the entire continent. Thus, Jun Moxie simply thought of himself as the enforcement of justice on behalf of the heavens, benefiting the world and purifying the human mind. He was acting for the welfare of the people and country and the joy of all beings on this world. Carrying the sagely heart of one who was delivering peace onto all mankind and saving the universe and all civilization, he struck out determinedly. Swearing to slay beasts under his sword, he would deliver peace and tranquility to the chaotic rumblings of the mortal dust. Today, this elder brother would begrudgingly become the savior of the world with this strike. This sword swept through the sky, causing the venerable of life and death, Wei Kong Kun, to become so frightened that even his soul wanted to flee from his body. Venerable realm experts were people too. As long as one was alive, they would fear death. This was especially the case for those people who'd lived and enjoyed lofty positions for a long time. These were the people who often feared death the most. Everything one possessed would become like smoke the moment one lost their life. The dynasties that one had built, all the past glory, the honors and riches, would all turn to dust in an instant. Against this sudden and heaven-dazzling sword, even an existence like Wei Kong Kun with his 4th-level venerable strength was completely left with no ability to dodge or block. This sword's attack range was actually not wide. In fact, it was extremely narrow. There was only one target, and that was his heart. But regardless of the timing or the positioning of the attack, they had all been placed at the most perfect level. Furthermore, it was swift and fierce to a never-before-seen level. And because its target point was small, the concentration of power in that point was extremely high. As long as the sword hit its target, there would be no possibility of survival. The attack had simply been too sudden. Wei Kong Kun was completely left with no place to dodge. From the looks of it, there was only the option of closing his eyes and waiting for death. But Wei Kong Kun truly deserved to be called one of the peak experts of this world. In such a terrible scenario, he actually managed to come with an immensely strange countermeasure. In a split second, a muffled roar rang out from his throat and he took a deep breath. During that moment, his body actually shifted in a grotesque manner, and with a paw sound, a hole actually appeared on his body. More appropriately, a hole had appeared on his chest, where his heart was supposed to be. This technique was truly weird to an extreme level. That scene was as if Wei Kong Kun's body had suddenly shifted and split on its own. The area on his chest had mysteriously disappeared, and everyone could even see through the hole to the scenery behind him clearly. In the instant that the hole appeared, Mo Xiao Yao's face turned as pale as a piece of paper. This move was undoubtedly a ultimate life-saving technique, but it was definitely a move that would greatly hurt one's essence chi. It forcibly moved one's heart and all the connecting flesh, muscles, and bones, squeezing them to a side to create an empty space. For such a method, How could it be easy? Although Wei Kong Kun had managed to comprehend this technique after he reached the 4th level Venerable Realm, he'd never actually tried it before. In fact, he'd never planned on using it ever. Because he completely did not believe that there would be anyone who would ever be able to force him into a situation where he would need to use it. But today, even if he didn't want to believe it, he still had no options but to execute this technique. If he still stubbornly refused to use the technique now, he would definitely die, greatly injuring his essence chi or dying on the spot. What was the better choice? There was not even a need to think about any of it. Although Wei Kong Kun was boiling with hatred, he still had to make that choice. In fact, he had already made his preparations for the next step. As long as he managed to dodge this strike, he would retaliate with all his strength. Even if he had to bear the repercussion of serious injuries, he would make a full-force retaliation and force this despicable assassin out and kill him. This assassin was simply too hateful and too scary. With such an enemy lurking around, it would be hard to obtain peace even when sleeping and eating. Mo Xiao Yao finally let loose a sigh of relief as he recovered from his shock. He stood up and readied himself behind Wei Kong Kun. His hands were filled with profound xian qi as he prepared to snatch over the treasured sword at any time. That treasured sword had clearly been thrown out by the opponent. Because firstly, if it were being wielded by someone, even if it was a technique like man and sword as one, there was no way it could achieve such speeds. Secondly, this sword was traveling in a straight line and completely did not show any signs of slowing down. Its target was resolute, only stabbing toward Wei Kong Kun's heart. Although the technique that Wei Kong Kun used injured himself heavily, he would still manage to dodge this sure-kill strike. As for this sword, although one could only catch a glimpse of it, it was obviously a peerless, divine weapon. What kind of a waste would it be for such a godly weapon like this to be in the hands of a weakling? In this kind of situation, whoever snatched it would gain ownership over it. Thus, Mo Xiao Yao decided to accept this gift without any courtesy. In just an instant, the dragon-like sword had already stabbed into the hollow area on Wei Kong Kun's chest. From the looks of it, it was about to stab right through. The edge of the precious sword had already poked out of his back, revealing its cold gleam. Mo Xiao Yao reached out his hand urgently to grab it. He was 90% confident that the sword was surely his. But just at this time, the unstoppable momentum of the divine sword actually stopped abruptly. The edge of the blade already showed from behind Wei Kong Kun's back, but the entire body of the blade had stopped inside the hollow of Wei Kong Kun's chest. In the instant the sword came to a stop, a loud bang rang out, and before Wei Kong Kun's disbelieving eyes, a purple-black chi flow burst out. It was like a bomb had been stuffed into Wei Kong Kun's chest and then exploded. The exceedingly baffling series of events earlier had left everyone shocked beyond belief. However, this last anomaly had completely surpassed all expectations. A moment ago, they were still gasping in shock at how Wei Kong Kun had avoided the sure-kill strike. As expected of a venerable level expert, if it were anyone else, they would surely be dead without a doubt. But in the next moment, this Wei Kong Kun had doomed himself. The purplish-black chi flow abruptly burst out, violent and powerful to the extreme, savagely surging into Wei Kong Kun's body. Wei Kong Kun shook intensely as if he'd been struck by lightning. His face were twisted in pain, and he looked of desperation. The life-saving technique he had used was originally only used when he was left with no choice. He had exhausted an ocean of xian qi in doing so, and the strength in his body had dropped to its weakest point. But in such a crucial moment, such an odd and unexpected change happened. This was really demanding for this old man's life. The long sword shot backward with a so sound, and floated about 3 zhang away before Wei Kong Kun. A white-robed masked man also began to materialize behind the sword. The masked man's feet did not touch the ground, and he hovered 3 chi in the air. A pair of cold eyes gleamed from behind the mask, as if looking at a dead corpse. Wei Kong Kun, you're finished. Wei Kong Kun roared lowly, and the noise sounded like a wild beast's howl on the verge of its death. In the instant the sword was drawn back, the hole in his chest closed up seamlessly and his body resumed its original state. It was as if he had never received any injuries at all. But just as everyone was beginning to doubt whether he'd been injured, a series of loud bangs rang out from Wei Kong Kun's body, like the violent explosions of firecrackers. Pa pa pa. Countless fine trails of blood suddenly poured out of his body, shooting through his white robes. It was like the fine rain of summer's day, covering the entire sky. The area half a zhang away from his body was drenched in fresh blood, dyed completely red. Wei Kong Kun's body was still upright, and a fierce glint akin to an eagle's shone in his eyes. He looked at the white-robed masked man in front of him and scoffed. Supreme Assassin? Chu Chi Hun? His voice was filled with a calm coldness. There were no fluctuations in his face. No anger. No sorrow. No despair, it was completely serene. In fact, he appeared much calmer now than before. The calm he was displaying now was like one who'd seen through life and death and transcended beyond the red dust. As he walked along the borders of life and death for the final time, this venerable of life and death finally revealed the demeanor of a peak-level expert. The white-robed masked man was naturally not the supreme assassin Chu Chi Hun, but young Master Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie looked at Wei Kong Kun, who appeared frighteningly calm and unperturbed. A hint of respect shone in his eyes. Although this person was an enemy and an extremely vile person whom he hated to the extreme, this kind of calm attitude toward death was still something worth his respect. An opponent one respected and a person one hated. These were actually not contradictory, and never contradictory. Jun Moxie was similarly calm as he replied. Supreme Assassin? No. I'm the king among the assassins of this world. The one and only king. He paused a bit and actually paced 2 steps in the void, saying in a bland tone. Since I'm here today, I wanted to open everyone's eyes and let you all see what a true king of assassins is. How is it? How does everyone like the taste of this king's methods? Although his voice contained a lot of calmness and wisdom, it was full of a kind of sorrow and arrogance that permeated from the bones and overflowed from the soul. His voice was dull, but all the people who heard him felt one thing clearly: this person was standing far above them, overlooking everyone with a condescending attitude like a lofty king speaking to his subjects. Unprecedented and unsurpassable throughout all ages. Supreme over all. Only the heavens are above me. Who is worthy of standing alongside me? Well said. I have no choice but to admit. You are indeed the king of assassins in the current world. Wei Kong Kun's calm face finally revealed a sliver of smile. That smile contained a warmth like the winter passing away into spring. That gracefulness and calmness did not seem like one from a person who was mortally injured. Wei Kong Kun continued slowly. To be able to kill me, Wei Kong Kun, is not something a mere supreme-level expert is capable of. That is the same for the supreme assassin. Chu Chi Hun, looks like your speed of breaking through is very fast. You have also improved greatly. The title Supreme Assassin truly does not suit you anymore. Perhaps Only the name Assassin Supremacy is capable of matching your achievement today. This fellow actually completely ignored Jun Moxie's denial and insisted that he was Chu Chi Hun. Jun Moxie was practically left with speechless. Feck. So domineering. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 712. Another crime added to the scapegoat. No wonder the 3 Holy Lands lost both soldiers and generals while they were chasing you. If you didn't have such cultivation, it would be too hard. Wei Kong-kun smiled lightly and continued. This old man has been watching out for you ever since I came to the Silver City. I knew that you would definitely appear. As expected, you hadn't disappointed me. However, I'm disappointed in myself. I thought that I had already thought very highly of you, but I've still underestimated you. Indeed, hearing about a man cannot be compared to meeting him in person. The King of Assassins. Well deserved. Well deserved. He smiled calmly, looked down at his chest, and raised his head again as he sighed bitterly. I've already made precautions to my best ability, but I've still failed to avoid your sword. What a good sword. What a ruthless sword. Jun Moxie pursed his lips, his heart filled with depression. Is this guy crazy? I've already said so clearly that I'm not the supreme assassin. Can he understand human words? A guy on the verge of death can still be so assuming, actually saying things like, "You've improved. You've broken through. I'm truly, just what the heck is this?" But Jun Moxie didn't know that although he was feeling depressed to the extreme, there was someone else who was feeling even more depressed than him. In fact, he was many times more depressed, almost to the point of vomiting blood. And this someone was currently hiding atop the Great Hall's roof, watching the entire drama. When Jun Moxie unleashed that dazzling sword strike, he nearly could not stop himself from clapping and whooping in excitement. But when he heard Wei Kong-kun's words, he almost vomited blood on the spot, very nearly dying from anger. He is driving me beyond the limits of tolerance. You 3 dog-shut Holy Lands are dumping shut on this daddy's head too smoothly. No matter what matter it is, you just have to blame it on me. Just like this time. The other guy is standing right before your eyes. And you still say that it's this daddy. Is there still justice left in this world? That person had even said very clearly that he was not the supreme assassin. Yet, you want to forcefully insist that it's me. Just what kind of dog-shut reasoning is this? Truthfully, Wei Kong-kun was not the only person who thought like this. Nearly everyone present had determined that this strike could only be done by Chu Chi Hun, the supreme assassin. No, the assassin supremacy. As for the truth, apart from the person on the roof and young Master Jun himself, nobody else knew. However, you're dead for sure today. You want my, Wei Kong-kun's, life. So how could you not be buried alongside me? Wei Kong-kun looked venomously at Jun Moxie and shook his head lightly. Chu Chi Hun, since you've succeeded in the assassination, you should not have showed yourself. Now that you've shown yourself, this venerable is destined to have a companion in death. The moment he finished these words, Wei Kong-kun immediately burst into attack. This was the last attacking opportunity of his life, the most violent retaliation before his death. Wei Kong-kun's body seemed to be fall apart as he attacked. However, it was reconstructing itself continuously. Just like that, forming his body in an amazing loop, he struck a killing blow toward Jun Moxie. His left hand sometimes rushed out of the right armpit, but the right hand also grew suddenly sometimes and abruptly shrinking the next. His shoulders, elbows, toes, knees, and even his thighs all became the lethal weapons for his attack. His movement was like a violent storm, unceasing and relentless. The two heaven-shocking attacks from that single strike from Jun Moxie had caused this venerable of life and death's life force to be completely depleted. He was dead without a doubt. Wei Kong Kun's heart had already been blasted into muck by the explosion of purple-black qi long ago. Although his life-saving technique had managed to create a gap in his body, allowing him to avoid the actual strike, but his heart had merely been shifted away, and it was still within his body. But when the blast of qi exploded, it had instantly crushed his weakened heart. Even his 5 viscera and 6 bowels had turned into minced meat. But Wei Kong Kun was still a peak-level expert who had experienced the tribulations of the heavens. In such a situation, he was actually still able to retain a final breath of pure Xian qi, preserving his vitality and allowing him to not fall dead on the spot. Not only that, he was still able to unleash a final counterattack. Furthermore, his momentum was extremely fierce, no different from a person who wasn't injured at all. An all-out attack from a completely uninjured 4th-level venerable, disregarding his defense. A powerful 4th-level venerable who wanted nothing but to perish together with the great enemy in front of him. But how would young Master Jun let him have his way? Pitting one's life against a person who was already bound for death was surely not the wisest choice. In that moment, he executed his wondrous movement technique and floated away like a puff of formless mist. Although the venerable of life and death was attacking with all his might, it was nothing but the desperate struggle before death. At this time, an angered roar suddenly rang out and another bout of shocking aura blasted over. The wandering venerable had chosen to attack together. This king of assassins was simply too scary. Even though the venerable of life and death was burning every single ounce of his Xian qi, Mo Xiao Yao still did not have any confidence that the former would be able to take him down. Only by joining hands could they hope to kill this king of assassins before Wei Kong Kun's energy ran out. But even though the two formidable venerable experts were acting together, that king of assassins still did not fall into a disadvantage, happily fluttering through the great hall. This kind of movement technique was simply even more ghostly than a ghost's. The 4 remaining venerables also rushed over. The strength of this person was simply too scary. If they could remove him, the consequences might really turn unimaginably dire. Simply facing the Jun family and the Xian beast horde was already extremely difficult. Now, there was the addition of a king of assassins who could even kill venerable realm experts. The Xian qi in the Great Hall suddenly became as violent as a tsunami. The Great Hall that had been made entirely from 10,000-year-old Xian ice actually began to sway like a drunk person, emanating teeth-numbing creaking sounds. Jun Moxie laughed loudly, and a sword light flashed as his sword disappeared. His body rushed upward like a white crane, shooting straight into the sky. A bright gleam flashed in Wei Kong Kun's eyes, which were previously as calm as a dead lake as he roared, "Where are you fleeing to?" World Cage. Wei Kong Kun had not dared to use the World Cage earlier as he was wary about Jun Moxie's miraculous movement technique and it needed a bit of time to cast. Although the time needed was short, it was enough to cause a fatal opening. With Wei Kong Kun's current state, if he got hit with another attack, he would be thoroughly finished. But with 5 great experts to assist him, the space that Jun Moxie could move in had been greatly restricted. Thus, this was naturally the best time to use the sure kill technique and kill the enemy. An even more violent spatial ripple surged out, as if it wanted to cut the space in the Great Hall apart and turn it into little pieces of separate space. However, Jun Moxie's figure, which should have been completely trapped, suddenly disappeared at this exact time. The white robe that was just fluttering before everyone's eyes had vanished. Young Master Jun had trained himself to defend against Mei Shuiyan's signature entrapment technique a long time ago. After breaking through recently, he could even sense the most minute disturbance in the air around him ever more keenly. The instant he felt the binding force appear, young Master Jun had already dodged into the Hongjun Pagoda. Before the Hongjun Pagoda, even the powerful world cage that had never failed before was useless. The instant the two words left his mouth, a line of red blood uncontrollably ran down Wei Kong Kun's mouth. He was already mortally injured, so using this grand technique was undoubtedly hastening his death. However, he still forcefully executed it. Wei Kong Kun stared resolutely upward, anticipating the pitiable sight of his enemy's body trapped in midair. Even if he had to die, he still had to have his vengeance, dying after his enemy. However, he was fated to be disappointed. The eyes filled with the pleasurable rush of revenge instantly turned into shock and disbelief. The world cage never missed. As long as it was against an opponent weaker than himself, no one had ever been able to avoid it. Something as weird as this had never appeared before. Just what is going on? Could it be that I'm having a bad dream? But these things are clearly happening before my eyes. All of a sudden, the Venerable of the Broken Sword, Hua Fengwen, suddenly cried out loudly. A broken sword fell from his hand, clattering loudly to the ground. His eyes were wide open with disbelief as he fell backward. An arrow of blood spurted from his chest with a pu sound, shooting high into the air, even boring a small hole through the roof of the great hall. Unknowingly, the Venerable of the Broken Sword, Hua Fengwen, had been stabbed through the heart by Jun Moxie's sword. The Venerable of the Broken Sword had truly lived up to his name, battling with a broken sword. Mo Xiao Yao roared madly, his voice tearing and turning hoarse with rage. Chu Chi Hun, you must die. Just at this time, a white shadow fleeted past the entrance of the great hall, and a human figure dashed out with a clearly mocking laughter. The laughter seemed to be filled with pleasure, as if it was challenging those experts in the great hall. Wei Kong Kun shouted angrily, and the blood trails that flowed from his body turned as thick as a column. Without a single word, he pursued the white figure. Mo Xiao Yao howled with rage as well and followed closely after like the wind. This was truly too shameful. All the peak-level experts had been gathered here, but the opponent had still managed to assassinate a 4th-level venerable and a 2nd-level venerable, before retreating without a single loss. Mo Xiao Yao felt like his old face had all been thrown onto the ground and ruthlessly stomped upon by the feet of countless people. How could this be endured? In that moment, he swore to kill the bastard. Otherwise, he would have no more face to stand between the heavens and earth. But he had only just chased his way out when he saw yet another unbelievable sight. A white shadow flashed a few times, appearing several tens of zhang away in the blink of an eye. Wei Kong Kun, who had just smashed his way out of the hall, was about to continue onward again, when a strange wang sound rang out. Yet another odd white shadow suddenly appeared from above the roof of the great hall. A sword flashed out, stabbing into Wei Kong Kun's back with a sound. Just a single one had caused the entire heavens and earth to turn upside down inside the hall. But there was actually another super assassin hidden here. This white shadow accomplished his deed in a single strike and retreated immediately like the wind. However, it did not forget to give Wei Kong Kun's body another kick, sending him flying backward into Mo Xiao Yao. Thereafter, it fled swiftly without even turning back. The white shadow's speed was extremely quick, seemingly not beneath Wei Kong Kun's own. The only sound that lingered in the air was a voice filled with extreme anger and annoyance. Dang all your dog eyes. This daddy here is the real Chu Chi Hun. Pinning things that I haven't done onto this daddy's head? This daddy shall make it real this time for once. Assassin supremacy? Is it a great thing? Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 713. Ascending the Snowy Sword Peak Alone. Chu Chi Hun knew that he had not done anything at all, yet he kept on becoming Jun Moxie's scapegoat. How could the aggrievement in his heart be small? Although he was incomparably furious about the other matters in the past, he wasn't there when it happened, so he couldn't do anything about it. But today, having seen with his own eyes and heard with his own ears, his lungs nearly burst with anger. The other guy had even denied it flatly before you, but you still insisted so resolutely on putting the crime on me. I fecking look like an innocent lamb? You wretched 3 holy lands are truly too despicable. The authentic Chu Chi Hun is right above you, watching and listening, and the imposter was also energetically denying. But you still can't distinguish such an obvious matter and so perfectly placed the chamber pot on this daddy's head. Chu Chi Hun finally understood how he became such an infamous scapegoat. But this bit of revelation caused him to feel even more infuriated. These bastards of the 3 holy lands, they only opened their mouths and whatever name came out of it would be true. Denying was useless, and explaining was even more of a waste of time. From the looks of it, this was the same for the previous times as well. It was no wonder the number of his crimes had increased so steadily. With these bunch of retards involved, it was difficult to not become a scapegoat. But one still needs to look at who they're bullying. Do they really take this daddy to be a soft persimmon? To be needed as they pleased? I won't accept it. This time, I'll be hard for you all to see. Thus, Chu Chi Hun's rage rose to the air. So when he saw Wei Kong Kun rush out blindly with his back completely open, his temptation reached an extreme level. Such an enjoyable matter. Chu Chi Hun naturally would not be pretentious and refrain from stabbing out with his sword. With that, he had completely ended the last bit vital Xian Qi that Wei Kong Kun had forcefully roused. A decisive strike and then he escaped immediately. That troublemaking ancestor had already disappeared completely long ago. I'm definitely not going to stay behind and continue being his scapegoat. By the time Mo Xiao Yao caught Wei Kong Kun's body, Chu Chi Hun's figure had already disappeared to tens of zhang away. Only his sharp voice remained behind, reverberating over and over, as if slowly giving vent to his anger. This daddy is the real Chu Chi Hun. Chi Hun. Chi Hun. Hun. Mo Xiao Yao only felt a surge of hot blood flooding up his chest. His eyes were dazed, and he took an unsteady step before he finally managed to forcefully hold his body. A mouthful of blood burst out of his mouth, and his eyes almost bulged out of his sockets in rage. At the same time, a new question blossomed in his heart. If the guy who had appeared later was Chu Chi Hun, then who was the other assassin in the Great Hall? His eyes trembled as he thought to himself. In that moment, he did not even dare to look at Wei Kong Kun who was in his arms. Because he truly could not bear to look. Just at this time, Wei Kong Kun suddenly moved and opened his eyes. He actually smiled and spat. Put me down. This venerable of life and death was truly a hardy person. After being mortally wounded, he received a stab and kick from Chu Chi Hun. Yet, he was still able to forcefully stay alive. Truly remarkable. Mo Xiao Yao's hand slacked and he slowly lowered Wei Kong Kun. Wei Kong Kun forcefully relied on Mo Xiao Yao's support, allowing the blood on his front and back to flow freely. Finally, with a tremble, he stood up again with his own strength and forced his eyes open lethargically to look at the 1,000 li of silver before him and the 10,000 li of mountains and rivers. Then, he sighed sadly as he gazed forward with pleasant remembrances and endless yearning. Brother Wei. You. Mo Xiao Yao looked at him with heartache. He only felt a sour feeling in his heart, but he didn't know what to say. His cultivation was similar to Wei Kong Kun's and their age was similar as well. In that moment, he could understand the sentiments of the latter. An anguished smile appeared on Wei Kong Kun's face, and his eyes turned calm and peaceful in an instant. I'm truly not going to make it this time, Kiki. To think that I've lived so a domineering life. But I'm going to be buried in this desolate land of ice. Brother Wei. You must be strong. There might still be hope. Mo Xiao Yao's voice trembled as he uttered words that even he didn't believe. With his cultivation level, he could easily see that Wei Kong Kun was surely dead without a doubt. Even if a heavenly immortal came down from the heavens to save him, it would be useless. Even if Jun Mo Xie suddenly changed his mind and decided to turn back to save Wei Kong Kun, it would still be meaningless. Wei Kong Kun sighed longly, not replying Mo Xiao Yao's words. Instead, he spoke forlornly, as if to himself. This old man has experienced 393 springs and autumns throughout my life. My cultivation has also reached the peak in this life. With the war for seizing the heavens right before my eyes, I thought that I would get to have a roaring battle with the strange races. Even if this bag of bones and flesh were to be crushed atop the pillar of heaven's mountain, it would still be a glorious matter that one could boast about in hell. But who would have thought that this would be the result? Only in this final moment do I understand that this chaotic red dust, this enduring mortal world, actually still have so many incomprehensible, profound, and unabandonable things. This old man is truly unresigned to just leave like this. In these years, I acted loftily and arrogantly in the Holy Land, becoming self-willed and obstinate, slowly turning pretentious and emotionless. The heroic spirit I once had before I joined the Holy Lands has actually turned so unbearably vulgar. It's a pity. I only understand that I had been wrong all these years right before my death. Truly, how sad it is to look back upon these things. Wei Kong Kun's expression turned peaceful as he spoke slowly. Fresh blood flowed continuously from his mouth, ears, and nose, dripping onto the ground. His voice was somewhat muffled, becoming harder and harder to distinguish. However, he still strove with all his might to speak, obstinately gazing forward with his increasingly fuzzy vision. In his trance, he seemed to feel himself flying up lightly, free as a bird. But when he looked around again, everything around him was boundless and indistinct, as if from ancient times till now, he was the only person upon this vast land. In that moment, a sense of loneliness rose in his heart, and he sighed lightly. Really so lonely. After that, this peak expert simply remained standing, but there were no more movements from him. Mo Xiao Yao turned his head and looked, only to see that Wei Kong Kun's face was filled with an unspeakable loneliness and melancholy. It was the kind of loneliness as if he hadn't found a single person who knew him in his past and present life. His entire body did not have a single sign of life. Brother Wei. Wei Kong Kun. Mo Xiao Yao called out twice with hope, his voice trembling. There was no response. And as he stretched out his hand and pushed lightly, Wei Kong Kun began to tilt backward. His body fell down stiffly and slowly, but halfway through in midair, a pu sound rang out. A large hole had appeared on his chest. This was the exact spot where Jun Moxie's sword had passed through, and also the hole that he himself had created. Following that, countless pieces of crushed organs the size of beans flowed out of the hole along with a heavy flow of blood. Finally, when his body hit the ground, the white snow under Wei Kong Kun's chest could be seen. Then, the hole began to fill with blood, until it was flushed with the same color as the rest of his body. In the moment that the venerable of life and death, Wei Kong Kun truly saw through life and death, he had regrettably also reached the end of his life. Mo Xiao Yao's body shook heavily as he slowly squatted down. His heart and mind were suddenly vacant and lost. The chilly winds howled and blew around him, and even with his deep cultivation, he actually felt a cold flow through his body. This was a coldness that rose from his heart and covered his entire body. When he thought back to Wei Kong Kun's final words, Mo Xiao Yao sighed again. In these years, I acted loftily and arrogantly in the Holy Land, becoming self-willed and obstinate, slowly turning pretentious and emotionless. The heroic spirit I once had before I joined the Holy Lands has actually turned so unbearably vulgar. It's a pity. I only understood that I had been wrong all these years right before my death. Truly. How sad it is to look back upon these things. I had been wrong all these years, truly, was it wrong? Jia Qingyun, Xiao Tianya, and Chu Wuqing also slowly walked over. Their faces were also filled with unspeakable heaviness and pain. The venerable of the edge of the world, Xiao Tianya, carried the still warm body of venerable of the broken sword, Hua Fengwen. Everyone exchanged a look, seeing the pain in each other's eyes. The mountainous winds blew unabated, cold and somberless. Jun Moxie hid himself with the yin-yang escape art, fully unleashing his speed and dashing all the way through toward his final target, the tall mountain peak that stood out like a heavenly sword in the distance. Collapsed the snow-covered sword peak. That was this mountain peak. The second half of the Dongfang family's oath. That place was also the place where Han Yanyao had hidden herself. Jun Moxie actually had his own purpose for coming to look at his target in advance. The happiness of his third uncle was Jun Moxie's true objective. Thus, he insisted on observing for himself first. If Han Yanyao was not the way he imagined her to be, or if she'd already turned her back on this relationship, Jun Moxie would not hesitate to kill her before she got to meet Jun Wuyi. To meet and disagree was worse than not meeting at all. This was not ruthlessness. It was for his third uncle. If things truly turned out badly, with Jun Wuyi's personality, he would definitely be unable to live. Whether it be the guilt or the hopelessness, either one would be enough to take his life. They were the source of all the bloodshed. Regardless of whether it was for his third uncle, the family head, or the Jun family, Jun Moxie would not mind carrying the sin of another person's blood on his back. He did not even feel anything after killing Wei Kong Kun. Neither surprise, nor joy. Since he had already killed. That was it. There was nothing to say about it. It didn't matter what kind of a man he was, or how domineering he was when he was alive. The moment Jun Moxie's sword pierced through his chest, he was nothing but a corpse. That was it. The only thing that caused Jun Moxie to feel pleasantly surprised was Chu Chi-hun. This supreme assassin had still come in the end. To honor his promise, he'd arrived early. The snowy sword peak stood tall, stabbing into the clouds. It was completely pencil straight from top to bottom. A few flights of stairs could vaguely be seen along its sides, after being worn down by the flow of the years and covered in a thick layer of ice. If one did not possess a high Xian cultivation, attempting to scale the mountain would be no different from seeking death. The higher he went, the more Jun Moxie could feel the bone-penetrating cold and the increasingly thin air. How did a tender-aged girl stay here for 10 years? Jun Moxie's heart had already softened somewhat. When he had nearly scaled to the summit, a small black cave entrance finally appeared before his eyes. Standing in stark contrast to the swirling white snow around it, the cave was extremely conspicuous. Jun Moxie took a deep breath and flew in. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 714. Sour Gentleness. Jun Moxie hid his presence using yin-yang escape. So naturally he was completely invisible to others. But he was startled when he entered the cave. While the floor was clean, the place looked nothing like a place suitable for a lady to live in. It was different from his expectations. The inside of the cave was much colder than the outside. The walls were smooth and reflective. And needless to say, this cave was dug directly out of 10,000 years of mysterious ice. But the inside of this cave was deep and spacious, with a couple of turns here and there. Jun Moxie only felt a bit of warmth when he was in the deepest part of the cave. On the left was a small bed with blankets neatly folded. A light pleasant fragrance wafted in the air. On the right was a stone table. Right in the center of the space sat a figure donned in white facing north, quiet and still. Jun Moxie ran his fingers through the walls of the cave, only to find bumps under his fingers. He took a closer look and realized that there were words carved into the walls of this cave. Upon closer inspection, what greeted his eyes left him stunned. Wu Yi. Wu Yi. Wu Yi. Jun Wu Yi's name had completely covered 3 walls. Each character of his name was carved neatly and clearly into the wall. From the looks of it, every single stroke was probably carved into the walls with the writer's nails. Not even the strongest Sky Xian expert would be able to do this with their mere fingernails, and when Han Yanyao willingly allowed herself to be put under house arrest, she definitely was not a Sky Xian. She was barely 20 years of age then and was pampered and protected from young. How could she have this high and deep level of cultivation of Xian Qi? If that was the case, then how did these words come about? Jun Moxie noticed that there was some dark, reddish stains on some of the words. Probably fresh blood from the nails that were damaged when carving these characters. Jun Moxie was overwhelmed by an unexplainable wave of emotions. From the simple layout of this place, that feeble-looking figure, and these walls with Wu Yi carved into them, nothing more needed to be said. Han Yanyao was still the same Han Yanyao that was in Jun Wu Yi's heart. Jun Moxie's third aunt. Every night, I look at the moon and hope to come to Tianxiang, but I know that life doesn't go in reverse. This woman had never turned back even till the end of her life. Jun Moxie drifted past her to look at the wall that captured her attention only to be stunned again. There was 4 altars carved neatly into this last wall. In order, they said, Jun Wu Hui, Jun Wu Meng, Jun Mo Yu, and Jun Mo Cho. At the end of it said, set up by the unfilial sister-in-law, Han Yanyao. No further explanation was needed. Jun Moxie thoroughly understood this lady's heart. A love that was stronger than gold. Deeper than the oceans. This weak, defenseless lady already saw herself as the daughter-in-law of the Jun family. Saw herself as one of the Jun family. No wonder she was treated like this by the Xiao family. Without saying a word, Jun Moxie acknowledged this person as his third aunt. A woman whose stubbornness could move people's hearts, a woman worthy of respect. Suddenly, Han Yanyao sighed and spoke gently. Who is there? Please reveal yourself. Jun Moxie was taken aback. His yin-yang escape had never been discovered by anyone. Even the strongest of experts were not able to do so. Yet how was this lady, who only had the level of a peak sky Xian expert, discover his presence? Please reveal yourself. You are highly skilled in your abilities. But I can still feel your existence. Han Yanyao raised her head, coldness in her eyes. Her eyes and facial features were beautiful despite not wearing any expression. Upon seeing this woman, Jun Moxie suddenly understood the true meaning of the phrase, as clear as ice, as clean as jade. Han Yanyao was like a fairy that formed from heaven-earth spiritual qi, ethereal and untainted. Merely standing there without a single accessory on her was enough to captivate anyone. It was almost as if this ethereal aura of hers would be compromised if she adorned herself with any accessories. Before such a beauty, there were only feelings of admiration and absolutely no inappropriate desires. And only, as clear as ice, could come close to describing this ill-fated beauty. Han Yanyao blinked and continued. The person hidden in the shadows. I admit that you have excellent skills in concealing yourself, and I don't have the ability to make you reveal yourself either. But I must let you know that you have forgotten something important. I have lived in this cave alone for 10 years, 10 whole years, and no one else has lived in here other than me. I know every nook and cranny of this space, how it smells and feels at different times of the day, and how the qi flows in the space in relation to the weather outside. I know it very well. You are extremely skilled in concealment, and based on Xian's skills alone, I would not be able to detect your presence. But all these senses aside from my Xian skills are telling me that someone has entered. Are you still not going to show yourself? With your prowess, do you need to fear revealing yourself to me? Jun Moxie couldn't help but laugh bitterly. He removed the yin-yang escape art and revealed himself. He did indeed forget that when being trapped alone in a space like this for 10 years, it was inevitable that one would start exploring small trivial matters when left with nothing to do and no one to speak to. Yet this exploration that was born out of boredom could easily expose the incomparable yin-yang escape. Jun Moxie was utterly speechless. In truth, this was not a skill unique to Han Yanyao, for it would easily be lost after interaction with people after a couple of days. However, Han Yanyao had never stepped out of this peak for 10 whole years. It was unavoidable that one would develop a thorough understanding of their surroundings after 10 whole years of living in such a wide space alone. Only loneliness and solitude would drive someone to do this. Even if there was something with no purpose, it still beat having nothing to do. Otherwise, one will really be driven to insanity living like this. Who are you? Han Yanyao observed this youth before her and her heart skipped a beat. Why does he resemble that person so much? Could it be? Han Yanyao could not help but stumble a bit. Jun Moxie smiled apologetically, but did not speak. He tidied his clothes and knelt before the altars, bowing thrice respectfully before standing up. This action was more convincing than any spoken words. Han Yanyao felt like fainting. Her face paled and she swayed from the shock. She felt like she was seeing stars and could barely catch her breath. Despite her attempts at controlling the raging emotions in her heart beat faster and faster, almost as if it were going to jump out of her throat. She quickly supported herself with the wall and gasped. Tears began to stream down her face endlessly. Why you are? Moxie? She choked out. The person before her looked so familiar that Han Yanyao could determine his identity from his actions. However, although she had confirmed this, she could not dare to believe it. This person was the person she most wished to see again aside from Jun Xie, but also the person she had feared meeting the most. This was something she had hoped for 10 whole years. Something she had completely given up on. Jun Moxie smiled. Third aunt is truly sharp-eyed. Moxie pays his respects. Han Yanyao struggled to remain standing. She could not believe what she had just heard. Tears welled up in her eyes again, and she asked in a daze. What did you call me just now? Third aunt. Jun Moxie said clearly. Third uncle sent me here to visit you. We will be able to bring you back to reunite with third uncle by tomorrow at the latest. At this moment, Jun Moxie felt that all his prior concerns and worries of if Han Yanyao had a change of heart and how he should respond were absolutely unforgivable. A complete classic case of ridiculous thoughts. How could a woman this dedicated and loyal ever have a change of heart? Han Yanyao heard him clearly, but she only continued to stare at him in disbelief, shaking her head and trying to snap out of it, as tears continued to stream down her face. She mustered all her strength to smile, as if she wanted to make herself appear less pathetic before this kin, only to no avail. The hand that had been supporting her against the wall seemed to have lost its strength and she fell to the ground, whimpering and crying quietly. Suddenly, she grabbed her head with both hands. Her entire body shook with her silent sobs. Only heaven knew how she got by the past 10 years. Compared to Jun Xie, Han Yanyao undoubtedly suffered more. She was a lady, a sensitive lady, after all. 10 whole years of guilt, yearning, self-blame, and being hopeful, but at the same time, afraid. Not to say the endless solitude and loneliness she had to endure. She had always acknowledged herself as Jun Xie's wife, as part of the Jun family, but she had never dared to expect the Jun family to acknowledge a daughter-in-law. Yet in her heart, she desired and wished so much for this position. She even thought that as long as she got to see Jun Xie again in this lifetime, she would die satisfied even were she to die immediately. To have the Jun name carved onto her altar after her death, she would be content with this life. Truly and sincerely content. With no other desires. She had never dared to beg the Jun family to allow Jun Xie to marry her. She didn't even dare to think of it. Because she knew how badly that incident back then had impacted the Jun family, and how much damage was caused to the Jun family and this youth before her eyes. However, the mere two flighty words of third aunt from Jun Moxie's mouth was enough to weigh heavily in her heart. Because this represented the acknowledgement of the Jun family. Someone from the Jun family had specially come to see her. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 715. This is your responsibility. You must carry it. Han Yanyao was like a wanderer who had left home for over 10 years, suddenly reunited with her kin in a different place. All sorts of emotions overwhelmed her heart. Tears of happiness fell from her eyes. With Jun Moxie addressing her as third aunt, she was content. She was satisfied. 10 whole years of worry, fixation, and guilt. Jun Moxie sighed deeply. He could understand how Han Yanyao felt, but it felt inappropriate for him to comfort her, since she was a woman and his own third aunt. He decided to just let her vent out all these feelings and emotions of guilt, unjust, fear, and hope that had accumulated and tortured and tormented this great beauty to exhaustion. Letting her vent and let all these emotions might not be a bad thing. Han Yanyao cried harder as time passed by, to the point she was almost going to faint. A long while passed. Han Yanyao finally and slowly controlled her emotions. Without lifting her head, her body shivering still, she asked, "Your third uncle, how has he been?" It seemed as if she had used up the last of her energy to ask this question. Her voice was gentle and almost inaudible, but she still hoped that Jun Moxie could give her the confirmation she sought. Third aunt. Third uncle, his health has been well. His leg injury has recovered completely, and his Xian Qi cultivation has also improved significantly. He is almost at the 5th level of the spirit Xian realm. Jun Moxie paused for a while before continuing. But I could tell that he was not well in any other way other than his health. How could he be happy? Han Yanyao said softly. He will never be happy as long as I am alive. Everything, it was all because of me, because of an inappropriate woman like me. Who implicated him, and not only Wu Yi, but also his brothers and 2 nephews. I am truly sinful. Jun Moxie frowned and was a little at a loss for words. It looked like his third aunt was truly unhappy, almost as if she had no other lingering attachments to this world. Moxie, help me tell Wu Yi that I will pay for my sins with my life, though I know a single life of mine will never be enough to compensate for everything. I can only pray that I will continue to make amends in my next life. I have hung on so long, waiting for the day when the Jun family would come for their revenge. Finally, this day has come, which is the same as saying my revenge has been attained. I have no more regrets in this world. Xiao family, I will not let them off even when I'm in hell. Han Yanyao cried. Jun Moxie sighed and rolled his eyes, ignoring everything she had said. There are 2 dead knots in third uncle's heart and they are extremely difficult to undo. If not undone, I'm afraid. Dead knots? Han Yanyao laughed pitifully. I know. I understand. The first dead knot is still the Xiao family, which is not too difficult to do. We just have to kill all of them and get our revenge. But the second knot is the sins the Xiao family have committed. Jun Moxie's face darkened as he shared what happened in Huanghua Hall. But this is more difficult to sort out. Han Yanyao shook with anger after hearing the heinous crimes the Xiao family had committed. To think that they are this savage. To not even spare a child. Worse than a beast. Exactly. We didn't expect the Xiao family to be this ruthless. To even harm these innocent parties after targeting the Jun family. Jun Moxie continued solemnly. But there will be opportunities to resolve these problems in the future. But the priority right now is actually third uncle. With these 2 knots in his heart. Even after getting our revenge, I'm afraid third uncle will only live like a zombie thereafter and even be unable to continue living. For his heart is filled with bitter sorrow that cannot be erased from blaming himself. Much like you, third aunt. Wu Yi, Third aunt's eyes were filled with sorrow. Wu Yi, you, my pitiful Wu Yi. No one can help third uncle undo these 2 knots. But if it's you, there's a chance. Jun Moxie was sharp enough to notice from Han Yanyao's words that the knots in her heart were more serious than third uncle's. He had to take precautionary measures otherwise because even if third uncle finally came around, but third aunt was unable and an accident occurred, it would only be another tragedy, even more difficult to salvage. The knots that Jun Moxie had spoken of were not entirely false. But they were more or less resolved by him. The greatest issue was the knot in Han Yanyao's heart. Me? How could it be? Han Yanyao was so surprised that she forgot to cry. I'm the ominous person who had caused all these problems. Wu Yi will only feel more despair when he sees me. How could I be the one to help him? Precisely because it is you that lead to all these happenings. But you only think of ending it all by dying without taking responsibility for everything. Everything has a cause and effect. If you will not be the one, then who else can it be? Jun Moxie continued coldly, his voice sharp and menacing. Are you going to continue running away? You ran away and hid in these snowy mountains, avoiding people, living carefreely. 10 years of solitude. Do you think it can compare to the innocent children who suffered from this incident? Night after night, they howl in despair. And to those innocent souls that died in such a tragic manner, do you think imprisoning yourself here is enough to atone to them? You are just running away. Stop. Don't go on anymore. Han Yanyao covered her ears and screamed. I'll die. Is that not sufficient? Dying is the simplest way of running away. Going out like a flame is so simple. It is not only is the simplest way, it is also the most despicable, the most thorough way of escaping from everything. Jun Moxie continued. Then what of those who are left behind after your death? Who can they rely on? How innocent were those children? Many of them lost their hands and can't work. They cannot speak because they lost their tongues. Some are even blind and deaf. Every bone in their bodies was contorted out of shape. They cannot even grow anymore. Even if they survived, with no way to do work, they would only be a parasite to others. Who would support them for free? These children who are the descendants of brave warriors, even if they grow into adulthood, will there be any lady willing to marry them? Which man would be willing to take someone like that as their wife? The bloodline of these brave warriors will never continue. If you are not going to take responsibility for this, who will? Jun Moxie stared coldly at Han Yanyao. You caused all this. Although you did not do it, you were the cause of all this. You had always understood this fact. So why won't you step up and take responsibility for what you should be taking responsibility for? Han Yanyao cried out involuntarily. Furthermore, you have completely ruined my third uncle's life. After we get our revenge, he might seek his end anytime. You already made him like this. Are you going to just let him die like that? My grandfather has 3 sons. And he already lost 2, if third uncle leaves as well. Do you really want to see the Jun family go through another major change? Jun Moxie continued coldly. All these matters and problems await you to take responsibility of them. Await for you to atone for your mistakes. Han Yanyao. But you wish to just die and run away from everything. How could it be this easy? Then what do you want me to do? What should I do? What can I do? Han Yanyao cried pitifully, tears flying down. Did I not wish to make amends? Did I not wish to atone for these mistakes? But, how do I face them? Am I supposed to beg those children to forgive me? Beg for forgiveness? What purpose is there in doing so? Why don't you try taking care of and nurturing those children? Help them live properly and start their own families. Were you afraid that it will be tough? Are you unwilling to do it? I'll do it. Han Yanyao gritted her teeth, determination in her eyes. I will take care of them. For the rest of their lives. Jun Moxie snorted and continued. Then what about my third uncle? Shouldn't you be staying beside him? To slowly soften his heart and help him undo the knots in his heart. Everything began with you as the cause. Only you can resolve all this with your own hands and your own abilities. Only then you can make up for your sins. This. Han Yanyao looked at him in shock, but was unable to speak. The person who she had feared meeting the most right now was the person that was constantly in her heart, the love of her life. That person who she missed dearly. That person who she dreamed of meeting again. But also the person she could only meet in her dreams. Jun Xie. You thought it was enough to just do that? What about my third uncle? He also needs to resolve his sense of guilt by doing this too. The root of all this evil is not only you, but him as well. Do you understand? Jun Moxie continued forcibly. And how he is right now is due to you. From start to end. It was all for your sake. Do you get it? This is your responsibility. You must carry it. I am willing to carry it. Han Yanyao opened her eyes and shouted, tears flowing out of control. I will carry it till death. Will this do? Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 716. This is the pugilistic world. Han Yanyao finally broke down completely under Jun Moxie's constant, merciless words. She sat weakly on the floor, her eyes in a daze. But she kept mumbling repeatedly, I'll carry it. I'll carry it till death. You not only have to carry it. You have to take care of my third uncle. Wholeheartedly, with your heart and soul. Use your gentleness to heal the scars you have left in his heart all these years. You must know that everything he had, his entire future, was completely ruined because of you. He suffered this greatest humiliation, the most tragic destruction of his soul. Jun Moxie continued leisurely. The blood general who should be worshipped by 10,000 people. To be in such a pathetic state today. You should understand the bitterness in his heart. I understand. I really do. Han Yanyao could only feel her heart hurting. Images of Jun Xie being hurled as insults, looked down upon by others, and in many other pitiful states appeared in her mind. Her heart ached for him. And she yearned to fly to his side immediately and to give him the support he needed. There is also my grandfather. How cruel has it been for him to watching his progeny die before him all these years. He needs you, this daughter-in-law, to soothe and heal these scars. To be filial and take care of him. There's also my mother. Me. My wife. All these are your responsibility. In a slip of the tongue, Jun Moxie accidentally threw all the responsibilities onto Han Yanyao. Had he not stopped in time, he would have thrown his own son, grandson's future wife as her responsibility too. Seeing that Han Yanyao had promised without any further arguments, Jun Moxie let out a sigh of relief. That was exhausting. To churn out so many reasons in the blink of an eye. That wasn't easy. Even Jun Moxie was a little impressed by himself at this point in time. Such a witty and smooth talker. The knots were deeply rooted in Jun Xie and Han Yanyao's hearts. And love was the only way to undo them. Only love could undo those knots, heal the scars in their hearts, and relieve their hearts from guilt. This relief included the love they had for each other, the love for those children. It was an emotion and not something physical, but when they both did something for those children, they would feel much better and more comforted in time. This is what was often known as conscience. Of course, Jun Moxie had selfish embedded embedded in his words. He genuinely wished for his third uncle and third aunt's happiness, and it could only be achieved with them together. While Han Yanyao atoned for her mistakes as she took care of Jun Xie, undoubtedly, when they were together, Jun Xie would return such love to Han Yanyao with greater care and concern. This way, they would both support each other and spend the rest of their lives together. And when they finally found peace in their hearts, they would realize that they had led a meaningful life. And by then, they would probably have many children. This was what Jun Moxie genuinely hoped for. The words he spoke today were merciless. And he had not minced his words at all. But it was the cure for treating this broken soul. Han Yanyao had agreed mindlessly to Jun Moxie's numerous requests in her broken state of mind. But she did not feel like she was forced to do anything. To the contrary, she had felt great relief after she made the decision in her heart. Even her broken heart that had given up on everything was healed to a state of purity and clarity. In life, one should only work hard with a clear goal in mind. And it was through attempting that one would discover the beauty in life. This was the truth. Let us strive for our goals together. A soft sound of someone landing could be heard from outside. Jun Moxie stood without shifting and stared coldly at the entrance of the cave. A flash of white appeared and someone entered the cave. It was Han Zhanmeng, the Lord of Blizzard's Silver City. Yower. Han Zhanmeng was about to speak when he was startled by Jun Moxie's presence. Who are you? Finally, the commotion had temporarily settled. 3 holy lands had instantly lost 2 experts and were down in spirits. They couldn't be bothered with anyone from Blizzard's Silver City. Han Zhanmeng ordered for the Xiao family to be kept under tight watch and came to visit his daughter immediately. It was obvious that the commotion today was the work of the Jun family. Since the Jun family had such great capabilities, there was bigger hope of defeating the 3 holy lands. So his present and utmost concerns lied with his daughter. If any fool came and told her the news of Jun family successfully taking revenge, she might just end her own life knowing that she could finally remove the guilt she carried in her heart. After all, she revealed that intention when he visited her the other day. So Han Zhanmeng came up as quickly as he could. Even if he had to tie her up, he would bring his daughter out of this place to keep her under close watch. But he did not expect to find a man already here before him and was gripped by anger. I'm Jun Moxie from the Jun family, Jun Moxie said. Master Han, we finally meet. You've met me before? How do you know that I'm Han Zhanmeng? Han Zhanmeng's anger faded away. If this was Jun Wuyi's nephew, he probably wasn't here to harm Han Yanyao. We met in the hall earlier. Just that you might not have seen my face. But we did meet each other. Jun Moxie chuckled. So you were that king of assassins. Han Zhanmeng could not believe that the person who had killed the level 4 venerable Wei Kong Kun with a single sword was actually this young man who had barely reached his 20s. That was just a small trick. I've embarrassed myself before Master Han. Jun Moxie replied humbly. Han Zhanmeng was a little speechless. How was that being humble? Why did it sound like he was bragging no matter how his words were interpreted? If that was just a small trick, then it was terrifying. Wasn't he being a little hypocritical? As he pondered, he walked over to help his daughter up only to be greeted by her tear-stained face. Losing his temper, he shouted, What did you do to my daughter? Jun Moxie shrugged his shoulders. Master Han, what can I possibly do to my own aunt? I am still a junior. What can a junior do to their elder? Han Zhanmeng was stunned. What aunt? What elder and junior? What are you talking about? The wife of my uncle is my aunt. And third aunt is the wife of Moxie's third uncle, which makes her Moxie's elder. Does Master Han understand? Jun Moxie explained patiently. Han Zhanmeng bellowed in anger. Who is your uncle's wife? Jun Moxie. While you are highly skilled in your Xian skills, that does not mean that you can spout nonsense. Even if Jun Wuyi wishes to marry my daughter, he needs to show some sincerity. Does you talking here even carry any meaning? Master Han. Naturally, the Jun family came with great sincerity. Jun Moxie continued smiling. So I hope the Han family can show their sincerity to complete this wondrous affair. Our sincerity? Han Zhanmeng frowned. What do you mean? Was the Han family completely free from responsibility when the Xiao family committed their despicable and heinous acts? Jun Moxie said coldly. I could tell that Blizzard Silver City did not wish to be at odds with the Jun family. But this is due to our current strength and power. I'm sure that Master Han would not even be willing to have this conversation had the Jun family's influence remained as it was in the past. In this world where power and strength determine everything, we understand this undeniable fact. The Jun family does not wish to make things difficult for the Han family for third uncle and third aunt, but it does not mean that we lack the power to do so. Master Han is an intelligent man. I believe you can tell the difference. Did you really believe that Blizzard Silver City was completely innocent from that incident? Or even, that the Han family has no responsibility for the tragedy that had befallen the Jun family? We need to find a balance. And this balance is for you to show enough sincerity. Jun Moxie said slowly, the weight of his words clear and obvious. Guilt appeared involuntarily on the face of Han Zhanmeng when Jun Moxie brought up that incident from the past. He was an upright man and was unwilling to speak without his conscience. After a while, he let out a long sigh and said, Blizzard Silver City indeed has to take responsibility for what happened to the Jun family. This I would not deny. But Jun Moxie, you also clearly know that this is a world where power and strength determine everything. This is how the pugilistic world is. The weak is food for the strong. The strong is respected. Gratitude and vengeance, this is the way of the pugilistic world. Jun Moxie listened quietly, not replying. Just because the Jun family has the capability to get their revenge, and even the capital to dominate the world, you have the right to discuss with me in such a manner. But have you considered this? What if the Jun family does not have such capabilities? How would this end? Han Zhanmeng continued. Had that been the case, even if the Han family knew that we were wrong, we may not even allow this discussion. Honestly put, it would be the same as the past, and we would not give in. Such is the pugilistic world. No doubt that it was a tragedy for the Jun family, but in this world, there are even more cases of greater injustice than the one the Jun family had suffered, happening every day, and this will continue happening. Tragedies like this will never cease. He laughed bitterly before continuing colding. Did third young Master Jun ever thought that since the day the Jun family began to rise, they also became a cause of evil? Similarly, some innocent families were also affected by the actions taken by the Jun family, and they also don't have the ability to seek revenge. You may not be aware, but I am sure there are such cases, and I believe you will not deny this. Third young Master Jun. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 717. This is the pugilistic world. Han Zhanmeng continued seriously. You killed the people who offended you, but those who did are undoubtedly people of influence. This influence they have is reflective of the responsibilities they carry. You thought that since they offended you, they should die. But at the same time, as you kill, you also kill off the hope of the lives of some innocent people. Jun Moxie did not disagree, but began to reflect on these words. In Blizzard Silver City, we gave great care to the Xiao family due to our ancestral teachings. But ultimately, no matter how powerful or influential the Xiao family is, they are still the subordinates in Blizzard Silver City and will never be the lord of Blizzard Silver City. Just like the men under the Jun family. They also have their own affairs, but when resolving an issue, they will bring out the name of the Jun family and use it as a shield. This may not leave a positive image all the time, And even if it may seem like it does not do much damage currently, it will eventually causes grave impacts someday. Similarly, would you kill off a capable subordinate immediately just because he committed some offense and ruined the reputation or harmed the lives of innocent people? Or make him apologize to your enemies? Beg for their forgiveness? I believe you would not. If you were capable of this, you would not be that domineering third young Master Jun. And neither would I, nor Blizzard Silver City do the same. Because at that time, the Xiao family was the central force of Blizzard Silver City. And the Jun family back then was too weak. So weak that it was not worth my attention. As horrible as Han Zhanmeng made it sound, it was all the truth. Even today, you are able to demand for justice and get your revenge only because the Jun family had managed to successfully rise back up. Han Zhanmeng said, "There are countless ways to demand reason and seek justice. But that is only applicable to ordinary people. You cannot deny this. Only power and abilities are taken in consideration when it comes to people of power. Justice is determined by power. As long as you have power, you have reason. No one would choose to offend someone of greater power and risk getting killed for the sake of their reasons and belief. Among the higher class, sacrificing for the greater good is almost non-existent. It's always easier said than done." Han Zhanmeng scoffed sarcastically. The saying, "the prince will be punished by the same law that governs the people if they were to commit an offense," was set by rulers. But in reality, for the tens of thousands of years, which prince did not have the blood of others on his hands? But when did they really get punished? Even if it's not the prince but the son of a magistrate, do they really ever get punished? It's only a pleasant saying. The distinction in status has been set clear from this seemingly fair and impartial saying. In reality, this is the same as saying, if the prince is to commit an offense, who dares to arrest him? Han Zhanmeng laughed sarcastically. With regards to that incident, the Han family can only apologize. And that is the most we can do. When the Xiao family wanted to wipe the Jun family out, the only reason you were able to live till today is because Yan Yao threatened with her life in exchange for your safety. And that is why you can even seek revenge today. Based on this point alone, not only does the Han family have no responsibility to the Jun family, we also did you a favor. That is the truth, no matter how you try to deny it." Han Zhanmeng continued coldly. Precisely because the Jun family was too weak back then. Had the Xiao family wiped you out, it would have made no difference to us. Isn't the only reason why you can seek revenge today is because you have sufficient power and ability today? I agree with Master Han. I feel the same. Jun Moxie spoke in an equally sincere and genuine manner. Indeed, this is the pugilistic world. It is a place that leaves little choices. Everything is determined by power and strength. And justice is determined by fists. There was nothing wrong with what the Blizzard Silver City did then. I can understand. But understanding is one matter. How to react is another. I still seek an explanation from you. And it is just as Master Han said. Precisely because the Jun family has the power to do so now. We did not do so back then because we were too weak. It would have been the same as disgracing ourselves. Jun Moxie spoke honestly. You said that the Han family did the Jun family a favor. But I cannot agree with this statement because you did it not for the Jun family but for your own daughter's sake. So please don't ever say that you did us a favor or anything of such sorts. So Blizzard Silver City still has to pay the price. Jun Moxie said mercilessly. Just as Master Han said earlier. This is the pugilistic world. That's right. This is the pugilistic world. Han Zhanmeng said sorrowfully after a while. Xie. Can't you spare Blizzard Silver City? Han Yenyao stood up and pleaded. How could your third uncle and I face each other like this? Spare Blizzard Silver City? Jun Xie looked at her, but slowly shook his head determinedly. Impossible. Back down. Yaoer. This matter does not concern you. Han Zhanmeng scoffed and faced Jun Xie. If that is the case, may I ask how the Han family should pay this price that third young Master Jun speaks of? What sort of compensation will the Jun family, or rather, third young Master Jun, be satisfied with? Jun Xie was taken aback by this question. While Blizzard Silver City had an undeniable responsibility to answer for, so did the Han family. But how should it go about being done? How should they pay? This remained to be a big question. If the Han family suffered, it would still be a tragedy for Jun Wuyi and Han Yenyao. Furthermore, the Han family was not directly involved in that incident back then, and the most they did was keep silent and watch the Xiao family carry out their acts. Only in the end did they intervene and prevent the Xiao family from wiping out the Jun family. Even if they were responsible, how big a price do they have to pay? While the Jun family was innocent in that incident, the same could be said of the Han family too. But Jun Xie was not willing to let it go this easily. Numerous lives were lost from the Jun family. How could this debt be let go of this easily? But both parties were equally at a loss for words. This question was like a hot potato. Neither party was willing to catch it in their hands. After a while, Jun Xie spoke. Back then, while the Han family did not intend to defend the Jun family, Third Aunt was ready to risk her life to protect the Jun family. So for Third Aunt's sake, Master Han can make the decision on this matter. But I only have two requests. First, do not hurt the relationship between third uncle and third aunt. Second, this price must be paid. There was no way to go about this. Nothing seemed appropriate. The witty and cunning Jun Xie was stumped this time. Having no idea was one matter, and how to handle it was another. The more he pondered, the more irritated he became, and even the way he spoke became demanding. You are clearly making it difficult for me. How could there be a solution that gives the best of both worlds? Han Zhanmeng laughed bitterly. I might as well go by the way you said it. You can do whatever you want to the Han family. I also have only two requests. First, Yaoer must be happy. Second, we are willing to pay the price. Jun Xie was caught by surprise. How could Master Han be this shameless? Han Zhanmeng had conveniently threw the problem back at Jun Xie. Han Zhanmeng only laughed bitterly. You were not shameless when you made those terms. But it is shameless when I do the same. This young fellow is truly someone of the pugilistic world. He has already mastered the knack of being shameless and thick-skinned. I'll leave this matter to Master Han. This is such a headache. Jun Xie laughed. By the way, I'd like to trouble Master Han with telling the people of the three holy lands to meet at the foot of the Sword Peak for the final battle tomorrow. This battle shall determine victory or defeat. The foot of the Sword Peak? That's right. Jun Xie confirmed. A malicious glint flashed across his eyes. Seeing that cold glint in Jun Xie's eyes, Han Zhanmeng could not help but shudder. This matter is between us and the three holy lands. I hope Blizzard Silver City will not interfere. A playful glint flashed across Jun Xie's eyes. I will also send a letter of challenge after Master Han goes back to convey the message. All right. Han Zhanmeng agreed quickly and said. But regarding that price, I still think it is better for third young Master Jun to decide what is more appropriate. We're willing to listen to your decision. I can't. I'm not suitable for it. Jun Moxie continued with incredulous sincerity. Such a huge matter as this needs an elder to make the decision. My third uncle and I are unable to do so, which only leaves my grandfather. But he is so old with age and it's not suitable for him to travel. Since Master Han is an elder as well, you are most suitable for making the decision. I am sure you will not treat us too shabbily. Han Zhanmeng was enraged. Despicable. Shameless. You can make decisions when you took your revenge. But when it comes to this matter you are unsuitable. Han Zhanmeng felt that if he continued to banter with this fellow, he might faint from anger. He unhappily dragged his daughter out of the cave and down the peak, not speaking a single word to Jun Moxie. But he was surprised that when he pulled his daughter out this time, Han Yanyao did not resist or argue but allowed him to drag her down obediently. What is this? Why is she obedient? Master Han was truly troubled. Watching these two leave, Jun Moxie finally decided to make a move as well. Before he left, he looked one final admiring look around and muttered, "Such a straight mountain peak. What a pity for it to collapse." Then he disappeared with a flash. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 718. Prepare to beat the drowning dogs. When Jun Moxie returned to the base, he saw Chu Chi-hun sitting in the tent angrily, talking to Mei Shuiyan, Solitary Falcon, and others. Jun Moxie joined them, grinning. "Oh, isn't this the powerful venerable assassin? I heard that you successfully killed the venerable of life and death, Wei Kong Kun, to raise from the title of King of Assassins to Venerable Assassin. Congratulations. This is a big matter for the assassin world. It's almost unheard of to assassinate a venerable expert completely unscathed. Your reputation is bound to spread far and wide." Chu Chi-hun didn't know whether to laugh or cry at Jun Moxie's praise. And scrunching his face, he spat. "Those fools from 3 holy lands really drove me to my grave. Calling them pigs would be an insult to the animal. Now will you finally stop blaming me? Do you understand how you became a scapegoat now?" Jun Moxie said mockingly. "I get it. I was so angry listening to them make me the scapegoat that I almost fell off the roof. Son of a beach. To think that such an absurd thing can happen to me. I really am unlucky." Chu Chi-hun's face was black. Mei Shuiyan and the rest were puzzled and asked for an explanation. With Chu Chi-hun's skills, how could he kill a venerable level expert? But venerable of life and death really died. Everyone was curious at such a shocking turn of events. Thus Jun Moxie began to share about the whole incident in a moving and dramatical manner, perfectly mimicking the manner Wei Kong Kun and the rest spoke, even adding some extra lines to spice things up. Ha 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 ha. Everyone roared with laughter to the point they couldn't breathe. Solitary Falcon even cried from laughing so much. Clutching his stomach, he said, "Chu Chi-hun is truly unlucky. Aside the fact that he had no chance with any good things happening, to even have to become the sole scapegoat for everything. This is too." Chu Chi-hun raised his head to the heavens and made an expression as if he wished to cry but had no tears. Everyone laughed even harder, and Solitary Falcon could not stand up from laughing too hard and remained on the floor. Jun Moxie joined in the laughter for a while before taking out some brushes and paper. Whoosh 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 the brush flew over the paper. And when it was done, Jun Moxie quickly kept it and said, "I'll be heading out for a while. Also, gather at Blizzard's Silver City and Sword Peak before 9 in the morning and prepare to beat the drowning dogs. All right. Where are you going? Jun Xie asked. I'm going to issue a letter of challenge. Jun Moxie replied quickly. Wait. Let me take a look at it first. Jun Xie commanded. As the commander, how could he not take a look at the letter of challenge? General Wu was frustrated by Jun Moxie's misbehavior. Jun Moxie blinked. With no choice, he unwillingly took the letter out and handed it over. Dawn? You said it at dawn, but why did you ask us to go before 9? Jun Xie frowned. Air. The weather here is pleasant. The air is also fresh. So being the kind-hearted soul I am, I'm letting those people cool off first. Jun Moxie replied mischievously. Jun Xie was furious. What sort of nonsense is this? Military battles. How can you fool around like this? If this was the real army, do you know that it's a death offense to alter the general's orders? Come on, third uncle. This isn't a real military battle, all right, but listen to me this time. If we were to go early, there will be severe consequences. Jun Moxie added secretively. The Sword Peak is going to collapse. Everyone was shocked. Dongfang Wenqing stood up and asked. The Sword Peak is going to collapse? For real? Absolutely true. It is really real. Jun Moxie assured seriously. Chu Qihun and Mei Shuayan looked at each other and couldn't help recall that landslide in that valley back then. Could it be? Everyone was frozen in shock. Whoosh! Jun Moxie quickly retrieved the letter of challenge and disappeared, leaving only a sentence behind. I'll be waiting for you guys on the mountain tomorrow morning. Please don't come too early. After a while, Jun Xie chided. This slippery fellow, but that letter of challenge is too infuriating. Who writes a letter of challenge like that? That's too tactless. Everyone was speechless. Chu Qihun was thinking of another matter. This Sword Peak is bigger than the other two mountains, so much bigger. Who knows if those venerable experts would be crushed to death if a mountain of that size collapsed. It was afternoon at the moment. Blizzard's Silver City was shrouded in a tense and heavy atmosphere. Mo Xiaoyao and Jia Qingyun sat in the hall, a heavy look on their faces. In the center of the hall were two ice coffins. The bodies of two venerables laid quietly inside. Surrounding it were the remaining 500 experts of 3 Holy Lands. This time, the 3 Holy Lands had deployed a third of their forces, a powerful lineup that was unheard of. Put into perspective, aside of the venerables, this lineup was easily all the forces from any single family in the 3 Holy Lands. Qingyun, perhaps we made the wrong decision to come here. Mo Xiaoyao spoke slowly, staring at Mo Xiaoyao's coffin, desolation evident in his voice. Why would Brother Mo make such an auspicious statement right before a big battle? Jia Qingyun asked, puzzled. Not only now, but before we had even set off, I've felt an ill foreboding feeling, as if something major is going to happen. Sighing, Mo Xiaoyao continued. Just as expected, we have already lost 4 venerables. Heartless Venerable Du Ju is also heavily injured and bedridden. All these happenings only confirm my premonition. Right now, this feeling is getting stronger and stronger, and my thoughts are getting more and more conflicted. Mo Xiaoyao let out another loud sigh. Could it be that something is going to happen again? Jia Qingyun couldn't help but shiver, and laughing dryly, he said, perhaps Brother Mo is overthinking too much. I'm sure we are all distraught by Brother Wei's passing. Not only Brother Mo. Even I feel afraid. 400 years of bitter cultivation, ruined in a moment. The impermanence of life is truly common. Mo Xiao Yao remained silent for a long time, before letting out a long sigh. This is the way of the pugilistic world. Once you set on this path, you either die at the hands of another or at the mercy of the heavens. Since ancient times, how many people have been spared? How many people were able to live till the end of their time? Even if it's a venerable, how many people are there? This logic, I've understood since hundreds of years ago. But bringing this up again today, why do we bother? Mo Xiao Yao's speech had evoked some unexplainable emotions in Jia Qingyun. He also sighed unwillingly. After we eradicate Jun Mo Xie and Venerable Mei and get revenge for Wei Kong Kun, I'll return to Holy Land and live in seclusion. Until the war for seizing the heavens comes by and I toss this body at the heavenly pillar. That will be it. War for seizing the heavens. Heavenly pillar. Mo Xiao Yao's face was overwhelmed with emotions. Suddenly, I feel like making such a statement is such a faraway dream, so far out of reach. Eradicating Jun Mo Xie and Venerable Mei alone already is so difficult, with such high risk of danger. And even getting revenge for Wei Kong Kun is easier said than done. You and I both saw the way that king of assassins assassinated. Honestly speaking, had that sword headed toward me, I'd have ended up like Wei Kong Kun. A glimpse of fear appeared on Mo Xiao Yao's face. I have absolutely no confidence in avoiding that attack. That sword is really forceful. Jia Qingyun also had a fearful expression, clearly recalling that impressive sword. It is not the sword that is forceful, but the person. Because you will never know where that sword is going to attack from. That is the most fearsome part. But when you realize, it's all too late, you'll end up like Wei Kong Kun. Mo Xiao Yao shook his head. We have gone through more than hundreds and thousands of battle in this lifetime. But against that sword, I had no idea how to counter it back then. Even till now, I still cannot think of any methods. The only method of survival I can think of right now is the same as Wei Kong Kun had used. But if I did that, how would I counter the sword that follows? Mo Xiao Yao shook his head, clearly troubled. Also, who exactly is that person? When did such a shocking assassin appear in this world? The three holy lands have eyes and ears all over the world. How could we be unaware? This matter is truly frightening. All in all, the pugilistic world is changing. It's no longer the same pugilistic world we were used to. Jia Qingyun sighed and asked, Brother Mo, could it be that the generation that belonged to us is now over? Mo Xiao Yao was stunned. After a while, he mumbled in a daze. Our generation is over? Is it really over? His voice was soft, as if he was questioning himself, but also questioning the heavens. At this moment, a clear voice called out, Mo Xiao Yao, get your ass out here to take my letter of challenge. The voice rang out clearly around the silent snowy peak. Mo Xiao Yao raised his brows, but did not lose his temper but spoke quietly. To think that it's the king of assassins from earlier. May I ask how I can help you? He could recognize that the person speaking right now was the person in white who had killed Wei Kong Kun earlier. Facing an enemy like this, even if Mo Xiao Yao had 10,000 guts, he would not dare to go out to meet him alone. If the person attacked again, Wei Kong Kun was the best example of what would follow. Everyone in the three holy lands stood up instantly, and Mo Xiao Yao gave everyone a look. Jia Qingyun, Xiao Tianya, Chu Wuqing and Mo Xiaoyao got into a defensive formation, hatred and alert in their eyes. They slowly approached the person outside. Suddenly, a white object came flying in with a whoosh, and maniacal laughter could be heard from outside. Ha ha ha. I knew you all would not dare to come out, so I'll just toss it in for you instead. 3 Holy Lands. Ha ha ha. It's hilarious. Why not change it to 3 giant tortoise shells instead? A bunch of coward. To have the cheek to call yourselves 3 Holy Lands. Ha ha ha, what a joke. The laughter slowly faded and the person left in a flash. The white object fluttered down and landed on the ground. It was a white piece of silk, with words written harshly on it. Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 719. What a letter of challenge. Mo Xiaoyao took a look at the silk and was furious. Rage and fury evident in his eyes. This was a letter of challenge, but the contents of it were enough to make someone explode from rage. More than a letter of challenge, it was clearly a letter of insults. Tomorrow, at dawn, at the foot of the Sword Peak, let's settle all our scores in a single battle. After that, I will kill Mo Xiaoyao, step on Jia Qingyun, punch the hell out of Xiao Tianya, and kill Chu Wuqing with a single fart. Hypocrites of the elusive world of immortals, villains of the supreme golden city, and useless bums of the illusory blood sea shall all turn into ashes tomorrow. The decline of the 3 remainder lands shall begin at dawn tomorrow. I treat the world as beneath me and flaunt my arrogance. I, Mo Xia, am the only supreme in the universe. The 3 remainder lands shall become laughing stocks, and mighty Tian Fa will last forever. Venerables, saints shall become a pile of white bones. No country clowns shall be spared. Bastard Xiaoyao, do you dare come forth and fight? Descendant of rats Qing Yun, do you have the balls? Either way, death awaits you. Don't say that I had not warned you. I'm going to turn your filthy bodies into fertilizer to fertilize this earth. I will make your pathetic souls into a puff of green smoke and shoot you up into the sky with a single fart. Woo. If you do not dare come, you can go straight home to drink milk. Let your mummies one feed you milk till you grow a pair. Woo. P.S. This is a battle between Tian Fa, the Jun family, and the 3 remainder lands. If the 3 remainder lands are too afraid to come alone, feel free to get aid from Blizzard Silver City. Asking them for help to retrieve your corpses is also a good idea. I'm a person with a gracious and big heart. Handsome and charitable, kind and benevolent, especially extremely benevolent toward those who are about to die. So I shall allow this. Ha ha ha. If you're afraid, you may also commit suicide and spare me the trouble of educating you sons of a beach. Ha ha ha. At the end of the letter was a whole line of ha ha ha, arrogance and haughtiness brimming from those lines. The contents of this letter of challenge not only outrightly insulted Mo Xiaoyao and the rest. Even the holy in 3 holy lands was changed to remainder, too. This was unacceptable. But they had to endure it. Outright challenging the limits of their endurance. Mo Xiaoyao's eyeballs looked like they were about to pop out of their sockets. When faced with such imperious taunting, he would be a saint if he could take it lying down. Fine. A battle we shall. It's too early to see who will emerge victorious. Next year, tomorrow at dawn shall be a taboo date for the Jun family and the Xian beasts of Tian Fa. Mo Xiaoyao's face was red with anger. And slamming his palm, He shredded the letter of challenge into powder. As Brother Mo sees it, if there is a direct clash between the two sides, what are the chances of us winning? How should we arrange our formation so that we have a greater chance of victory? Jia Qingyun asked with a solemn expression and a frown. But the more he calculated, the lesser confidence he had. Our forces currently number 543 people, amongst which you and I are the most highly skilled. So naturally we will be the best choices for the main forces. Each of us can take a route. But regarding the third route, a pity that Brother Wei has left us. So now we're short of a commander for one route. That Xiao Tianya has already broken through the third level. So we can have him lead the third party of people for the third route. Mo Xiao Yao pondered for a moment. And added, and Chu Wuqing can help us out amidst the battle. He paused for a moment before a look of realization took over his face. Our forces have been weakened greatly due to the series of events. We are still beneath Tian Fa in terms of our abilities. With the current unfavorable circumstances, a tangled battle is of no benefit to us if we want to win the enemy. Mo Xiaoyao sighed. The enemy has the military prodigy Blood General Jun Wuyi on their base. And the Xian beasts are simple-minded, so they're easy to command. The previous battle Xiao Tianya and the rest were in is the best proof. If we can avoid a tangled battle, we must try our best to avoid it. A tangled battle evidently will put us at a disadvantage. Then the best solution we have is to fight one-on-one. Jia Qingyun said. They have the upper hand in numbers and combined forces. But we have highly skilled experts on our side. If we can force them into engaging in melees, we will have the upper hand. Even if they have that king of assassins helping their battle. As long as we don't have to face his sneak attacks, I believe we still have quite a big chance of winning. We shall see. If we are unable to create a situation where it's a one-on-one battle, we shall trigger the tangled battle first. Catch Jun Wuyi by surprise. Then in this short window created, the four of us shall join forces to become the strongest killing force. Killing Venerable may then find a way to kill Chu Chi Hun. A sinister look appeared across Mo Xiao Yao's face as he continued. Jun Mo Xia is still not a cause of concern for now. We need to strike at the same time. As long as we get rid of those two people, then we can regather our forces to deal with that mysterious king of assassins. Pondering deeply, Mo Xiaoyao said, that person, we will have to deal with extra caution. Only then will we have a high chance of victory. That person is too terrifying. Even if I were to face him in a fair battle, I have no confidence of winning. However, if we were to do this, what if the king of assassins strikes while we are dealing with Venerable Mei and Chu Chi Hun? That person's agility is too peculiar. Jia Qingyun worried. Activate the human sea strategy. Use the lives of our troops to hold him back by pushing them to him. A sinister look appeared on Mo Xiaoyao's face. A cold, ruthless gleam in his eyes. Even if they all die, they must hold him back. Until we have the time to deal with him. Jia Qingyun took a deep breath and replied, if that's the case, we will be making a huge sacrifice. This is the pugilistic world. Mo Xiaoyao said coldly. Even you and I are risking our lives in this battle. What less them? We must not lose this battle. And if even we lose, they also won't have much meaning in surviving this battle. Jia Qingyun slowly nodded his head, agreeing with Mo Xiaoyao. If that's the case, do we still need Blizzard Silver City to join us? Jia Qingyun finally asked after much consideration. Mo Xiaoyao stood up and paced around. He slowly uttered. The letter of challenge stated clearly that if people from Blizzard Silver City were to appear at the battleground, the enemy won't take us seriously. But Blizzard Silver City cannot be sitting out of this battle completely. Send 10 venerable level experts to keep an eye on them. And once we begin the tangled warfare, let them launch a sneak attack from the back of the Jun family and Tian Fa's troops. They may be unable to be a useful force in this battle, but they can definitely help create a mess on the battleground. He grinned maliciously, planning to sit out of this battle. How could it be so easy? All the more to drag them into this whirlpool. If the Han family does not wish to render its strength in this battle, we don't have the time to banter with them, as long as they don't attempt to backstab us. Mo Xiao Yao continued, and his eyes suddenly brightened. Also, we need to work on the Xiao family. Gather all the Earth Xian forces of the Xiao family. They are dead enemies of the Jun family. I'm sure they will give their everything to aid us. Besides, we must give them hope. Promise them that if they are able to contribute greatly to this battle, we can ensure that the Xiao family will not perish. As long as we can eradicate the Jun family and Tian Fa alliance, we promise that they will forever enjoy the ownership of Blizzard Silver City. If we do so, there will most likely be issue from the Han family. They are the owners of this place after all. If we were to, Jia Qingyun said. If the Jun family is defeated, what comeback could the Han family create? If the Jun family wins, the Xiao family is bound to perish. We are only letting them have a glimpse of hope in their despair. Furthermore, after this battle is over, how many of the Xiao family could be left? Mo Xiao Yao said sinisterly. Excellent plot. All is good like this. Jia Qingyun nodded his head in agreement, obviously impressed. Xiao Tianya, bring a few men with you. With aid from the Xiao family, go down to the battle site and see if there are any suitable spots for ambushes and hide a portion of our forces to utilize during the actual battle. Mo Xiao Yao commanded coldly. Xiao Tianya obeyed, and with a wave, a few experts who were better in speed and agility followed him and drifted out of the hall. Mo Xiao Yao looked outside coldly and raising a palm, he stood there, unmoving. After a while, he spoke. Brother Wei, Brother Hua, your brave souls have not left us too far yet. We shall seek revenge for you tomorrow. We shall use the fresh blood of the Jun family to water your graves. I'm sure you will be smiling in the netherworld. Unlimited killing intent seeped out of him and rose upward. A few birds at the snowy peak were shocked by this spine-shivering atmosphere and let out a few cries before flying away. Mo Xiao Yao could only feel the blood in his veins boiling. His fingers slowly clenched into a fist, and his joints popped out prominently. The desire to battle that had never appeared for hundreds of years began to pour out of his heart. This moment, he felt like the heavens and earth were beneath him. He was the only supreme ruler in this world. Ha ha ha. Fight. Vengeance of life and death shall be settled in a battle tomorrow. The venerable Mo Xiao Yao shouted. This one shout had all his Xian cultivation instilled in it. It was thunderous as it shook the surrounding mountains. Even the accumulated snow on a faraway mountain began to fall off in chunks, and the rumbling sound was shocking. He actually created a small-scale avalanche that only stopped after a long time. A battle cry of this level raised the originally low spirits of the experts of 3 holy lands in an instant. They chanted in unison, "Vengeance of life and death shall be settled in a battle tomorrow." The shouts of the crowd echoed between the mountains, back and forth. While their voices were full of vigor and spirit, echoing around the mountains made it sound a little tragic and pathetic. Jun Moxie was already at the foot of the sword peak. To be more exact, he was almost 10 feet underground. Jun Moxie stood in the soil quietly, his face full of concentration. When he felt that the energy was right, he made a sharp turn and faced the thick soil wall. spreading his palms outward slowly, as if he were pushing something of incredible mass. A small glow of yellow light appeared on his palm and spread all over his body, enshrouding his entire body in holy light. He chanted, 5 elements. Power of the earth. Out you go. Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 720. Driving the power of the 5 elements under the snow-capped peak. The yellow glow that covered his body suddenly radiated outward, infiltrating into the rock layers wave after wave. It took a long while before the glow died down. Although Jun Moxie's cultivation had been beefed up with the full blast, he still couldn't help but pant from exhaustion. He adjusted his breathing and slowly gathered the power in his body again. The Hongjun Pagoda was spinning tirelessly in his mind as a large abundance of spiritual qi flowed into his meridians, replenishing what he had used. The entire snow-capped peak was too humongous. It was an impossible feat to collapse the entire peak with a single blow. It was not even possible with the supernatural abilities of Jun Moxie's power of earth due to the limitations of Jun Moxie at this stage in time. He could only attempt to shake the foundation of the mountain bit by bit with maximum effort every time. The Hongjun Pagoda, Jun Moxie's ultimate cheating machine, was able to top up Jun Moxie with spiritual qi, allowing him to gain in quick recovery. Before long, another blast of yellow light would seep into the soil. But with 2 more cycles, Jun Moxie could not help returning to the state of gasping for breath. The rock layers were packed denser than what he had imagined. With so many blasts of the power of earth, there was still no signs that the peak would budge. The ice layers that were formed in the span of 10,000 years are too hard to break. Wait! Ice layers. Ice, isn't that frozen water? Perhaps it's not that the power of earth is not strong enough. Maybe it's just that I've used the wrong technique. Jun Moxie was suddenly enlightened. He took a deep breath in as he suddenly opened his eyes and yelled, Power of water. Out you go. Jun Moxie's eyes turned sky blue the next moment. He formed different sets of complicated seals with his hands with so many variations that it appeared as if he were dancing very elegantly. The next moment, a beam of faint blue light shot out from all parts of his body. The beams were like dancing butterflies looking for their way home through all the dirt and rocks. With 4 consecutive blows of the power of water, Jun Moxie was exhausted. He sat back on the ground and panted heavily. With a short break, Jun Moxie changed his position and alternated between the power of water and power of earth again. As he repeated these actions below the 4 corners of the mountain, Jun Moxie was finally able to enter the center of the peak, the position right below the sword-like protruding rocky structure that pointed up into the sky. This location was the key. And Jun Moxie was surprised to find that he was having a lot of difficulty moving through all the rock even with his yin-yang escape technique. It was only the second time Jun Moxie was unable to pass smoothly with his yin-yang escape ever since he acquired the technique. Previously, it was in the Tian Fa forest. He was unable to pass through the mist that veiled all the secrets and mysteries. Then, he was still not aware that it was the location where the 9 Nether 14th young master was trapped with the Tian Fa Saint King guarding within. The retarding force was even greater this time. The challenge the previous time was only that the mist seemed to be endless no matter how far he went. But this time, Jun Moxie was faced with very solid and dense matter. Looking at the miraculous scene before him, Jun Moxie even regretted slightly his plans of collapsing the snow-capped peak. At the right center was a layer of ice with a rainbow glow. This layer of ice was unusual. Frozen within it was a huge reserve of extremely pure heaven-earth spiritual qi. The concentration was so high that even Jun Moxie was facing difficulties breathing properly here. The spiritual qi had literally solidified here. What a miracle! The source of the rainbow glow was the solidified spiritual qi. They formed strips of glowing ribbons embedded in the icy layers, lighting up the whole cavity below the peak. How beautiful! Jun Moxie was amazed. So comfortable to be standing here. Suddenly, without any warning, Jun Moxie could feel that the Hongjun Pagoda suddenly rise and begin spinning, radiating out similar, rainbow-like beams. The Hongjun Pagoda was automatically awakened. As Jun Moxie was still recovering from the initial surprise, the Hongjun Pagoda drifted out of his body from his forehead. The pagoda was like a microscopic gem that still gave out flares despite its small size. The pagoda only paused before him for a very short while before finally hovering above his head. It spanned faster as it grew in size and its flare intensified. It expanded until its size was half of a room. The gates of the pagoda suddenly sprang open. This time, there was no heaven-earth spiritual qi leaked out from the gates. Instead, the heaven-earth spiritual qi in the ice layers were attracted over and flowed into the pagoda uncontrollably at a crazy rate. It was like a moth seeking flames. Jun Moxie carefully observed that spiritual qi would arrange itself properly by color and enter the pagoda in a very orderly manner. The most amazing was the speed at which it was separated and sucked in. Pure white, pure black, pure red. The Hongjun Pagoda was like a giant that was always glutinous. The rainbow beam rearranged into obvious beams of pure light as it rushed into the gate. Upon seeing this, Jun Moxie felt jealous. He could not help but want to pick up some strands of rainbow and absorb it for his own use. Just as he tried to move, he found out that he couldn't even lift a finger. However, it was not a surprise to Jun Moxie. Every time the Hongjun Pagoda self-initiated, he would be unable to move. A whole hour passed. Even with the full absorbing power of the Hongjun Pagoda, it took an hour before all the spirit qi was taken in. What a crazy and unimaginable amount of spirit qi. After the hour, all the rainbow color was gone, but the ice layers were still glowing. The sucking power of the pagoda became even stronger as the sound of sucking in a large volume of air was audible. Finally, there was a small tremor and an object the size of a palm which was giving off brilliant white light shot out from the ice layers and entered the pagoda. It was so fast that even Jun Moxie could not identify what the object was. The pagoda suddenly stopped spinning. It zoomed back into Jun Moxie's head and settled back down in his consciousness. It was like a well-fed man resting to digest his sumptuous meal. Immediately, Jun Moxie felt that he was able to move again. He took 2 deep breaths immediately. He didn't even realize that he had even lost the ability to breathe in those 2 hours. If not for his recent breakthrough, he would have been suffocated. Only after a few breaths did he realize that the surroundings had become pitch dark. Dead silent, and there were no signs of life. He approached the ice layer and poked at the ice softly to check. But with a snap, a hole was made. Dang! Jun Moxie couldn't help curse. The power of the Hongjun Pagoda is truly formidable. He used his yin-yang escape again. And just as he had expected, there was no more obstruction. He went a cycle around the peak before he quickly hopped out of the ground. He was afraid that the peak would come crashing down anytime because he found out that all the soil beneath was loosened. Jun Moxie speculated that with just a single blast of the power of earth, the peak would be going down. It was breaking dawn when Jun Moxie emerged from beneath. He had spent a whole night below. The strange encounters tonight made him feel like that it was all just a dream. What exactly has happened? What is all that rainbow-colored heaven-earth spiritual chi? What's that small object? Jun Moxie thought of entering the pagoda to see. But to his surprise, the pagoda refused to open its doors. There wasn't even a slight bit of heaven-earth spiritual chi leaking out. Jun Moxie thought that it might be the pagoda still trying to process all the new spiritual chi it had received. It was just like a man with a large appetite that had gotten used to eating a little but was given the chance to eat much again. And now he had eaten so much that he was too full. Perhaps the Hongjun Pagoda had too much to digest. This story will be continued to chapter 721. For those of you who are not subscribed yet, please subscribe. The interesting and best stories will be updated. See you again in the next episode.